Cuz, little news this morning. Saw the update of Mr. Glenn Sanford moving back into the CEO role. I haven't had a chance to dive into it, but kind of what's your take on it?
Yeah, while he was here in Puerto Rico, he mentioned that he was going to be stepping back into the CEO role. He didn't really give a lot of context as to what that was about, but certainly I'm sure he sees an opportunity to help us grow and wanted to be playing a more active role.
Typically, just because, I mean, kind of your vantage point, your viewpoint, just even your experience, why typically when you see those shuffles, typically what is the reasoning? And it could be a magnitude of reasons that would cause that. But from your experience and vantage point, how come you see those type of moves happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, it happens here usually when we're shuffling people into certain positions or creating new roles. He usually steps back into a bigger leadership role. He's done that numerous times since we've been in the company. So it usually has something to do with another key person that's coming aboard or something along those lines. Although he didn't allude to that, I would guess that there's he's stepping back in this role for just a period of time. Maybe we're bringing somebody else on too. Cool. Would be my guess.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any, sometimes people might want to read into it. Oh, what's going on? Is this bad? And typically that's not the case, right? It's like you said, it's a strategic move. It's very thought through. As we know, Glenn really methodically thinks through and strategically thinks through everything. And, one of the little nuggets that he gave and he shared, and it's something I've been trying to be more intentional with, is he just talked about a lot of his reflective time, and that for him, he spends his Saturdays and Sundays just reflecting on the week that was. And then that allows him, when he meets with leadership on Monday, that he's really put some of that in what kind of our vocabulary around it was, that independent thought going into the week. So you have some you've reflected, you've actually thought through it to be able to bring your thoughts, your perspective into the conversation. And we've put certain tools and time in the calendar for that. And I think what we've always loved about the morning huddle and the end of the day reports is that if you use those tools correctly, it forces you to have some of that independent thought. So, and I would love for you to kind of expand upon this, but we see a lot of agents that they don't even take time to reflect, but maybe once a year, right? As they're thinking through their new year, they're thinking through this, and then they're going to, make the changes going into the new year. So they have that thought, that reflection once a year. Well, then we get to working, or we're working together, and then they're like, I got to do this every 90 days. And then it's like, okay, well, you need to be doing that on if you adopt kind of like the Sunday planning process, the reflection time, the lessons learned, you do it once a week. But when you really get it down, and I think this is where a lot of agents need to go with it, is that when things get tough, you have to communicate more, and you got to close the feedback loops. And that's where the morning huddles, that's where the end of the day reports, to where you shorten those feedback cycles in your reflection time so you can make adjustments faster. But I know this is something core to you, core to your, to who you are and your thinking. I would love for you to expand upon it and how come it's so important for agents listening in to be thinking this way.
Well, yeah. I think the biggest threat, I think, and the biggest challenge that most agents have for sure, and really any leadership role that you're in, is too much time passing between things that are happening in the business, and not a quick enough feedback loop so that you can make changes and make improvements and continue to move the ball forward. And you lose touch with people that way. You lose weeks go by, sometimes months go by, sometimes years go by without problems being diagnosed and challenges being overcame. And so it's just a system, it's a process for how do you get feedback in your business? How do you reflect on what's working, what's not working? How do you make decisions? What's your framework for how you make decisions moving forward? And anytime that I reflect back on times where things weren't getting executed or problems existed for far longer than they should have, it was because there wasn't a tight enough feedback loop. There wasn't a good enough process in place, or it wasn't being followed between me and any of the staff or the team that we had put together. And so certainly it makes all the difference in the world, especially when you're busy. If you're heavy into production and you do have a team of people around you, there's little time that you have where you're not busy or face to face with clients. And so those are the tools that we always use to improve decision making and solve problems for long periods of time without being addressed.
Too, because I think just kind of reflecting back on it for us, I think the tighter the feedback loops, it allows for more transparency and not having that anxiety, right? Because a lot of people, I think, understanding the concept and the difference between, and we get a lot of team members like this, right? And asking the question, are they committed, or are they just being compliant? And so the compliant people, they don't want to talk about those things, right? They would rather time go by and they were just compliant doing their activities, and are they not worried about getting better because they're not committed to the bigger purpose, the bigger vision, the process of improvement. And I think when you shorten those feedback cycles, it allows for more commitment and it allows for less anxiety. Like the team, like they know, right? And this goes back to the agreements that we have versus expectations. And I think when we let time lapse, then those expectations creep in, and that's where it causes a lot of friction. But communicating more removes a lot of that friction because you don't feel that overwhelm, that anxiety. It's like, yeah, I'm dropping the ball. I'm missing here. And what do we got to do to get better, to improve upon it? Where are our challenges? How do we design a better plan to get around it? And I just have seen in any of our scenarios, right, when we ratchet down communication at a higher level, man, you talk about pulsing at a better clip. You don't feel the anxiety. Everybody's rowing in the same direction, and it just helps everything all around. But I see so many agents, and I know you have as well, is that when things get tough, they break the communication. They don't communicate enough.
Right.